With slightly just over 200 days or 7 months incarceration, former President Edgar Lungu's political advisor, Dr. Chris Zumani Zimba, on December 1st, 2023, walked to freedom. Now, this was after he and 2 others were committed to the Lusaka High Court for trial on terrorism charges. Zimba appeared before the Lusaka Magistrate Court with his co-accused Given Piri, Marlon Banda and Potiphar Gwai for explanation of charges. Now, in this matter, Zimba and his co-accused were facing 4 counts of terrorism, an offence they allegedly committed in the year 2020. Mr. Zimba was accused of aiding Terrorism Act contrary to Section 28 of the Anti-Terrorism and Non-Proliferation Act of 2018, as read alongside Act Number 6 of 2023 of the laws of Zambia. Allegations were that between February 1st in 2020 and February 22 of 2020, Mr. Zimba aided his co-accused to conduct terrorist acts or proliferation in Petauke district. Recently, Mr. Zimba and the 3 others were acquitted by the Lusaka High Court from these terrorist-related charges in relation to gassing incidents that rocked the country in 2020. After the break, I'll be talking to Dr. Edgar Lungu's former political advisor in Chris Zumani Zimba. Good evening and thank you so much for joining me on Costa this evening. With me, Costa Monsa. Welcome to all of you tuning in on DSTV 271 across the borders, all the way in Zimbabwe, Namibia, Malawi, as well as Botswana. Welcome to those joining us online at Stamon TV Zambia and Facebook, as well as on YouTube. This evening, we discuss aspects of the judicial process, issues surrounding human rights, and basically the rule of law. This is in the background. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks, the debate and conversation around compensations has been rife through the courts and the Attorney General chambers. My guest is Dr. Chris Zumani Zimba, former political advisor and also a political consultant, a personal friend of mine. How are you doing? 7 months in incarceration. Have you recovered from that ordeal? One can never really recover. How are you?
Well, Costa, by God's grace, I'm fine. I'm thankful to God that he came out. I was acquitted and given back to the Zambian people as a free man. Suffice to mention that I went in as a free man and I came out as a free man. When I was arrested, I was weighing almost 68 kg, and when I came out, I'm now weighing almost 72. So it means I'm well. I'm fine. I'm not broken. I'm not hate, but it was very inconveniencing, it was very painful, both for myself, my family, and close friends like you and a lot of other Zambian people. But as I indicated, it is well. And for those who participated in the actual persecution, the bondage, the jailing, I indicated when I just came out that we're forgiving them because Christ is love, and therefore as Christians we need to demonstrate love by forgiving the people trespass against us. I'm a free man, therefore I cannot be bearing hate or anger in my heart. I need to be free both physically and in my spirit as well as in my soul. So I'm a free man, thank God. And coming back to your question, I'm very fine health-wise.
Brilliant. Let's get and dig deep into this case. Terrorism charges are very, very, very serious, charges. You were accused of committing this offense in the year 2021. You were appointed by President Lungu only in December of 2020. At the time, this offense in 2021, it was bailable before the amendment of the Anti-Terrorism and Non-Proliferation Act, which was introduced. Regardless of this, You were denied, your constitutional bail rights. How would you describe the adherence to the due process and the protection of, human rights by government, especially that this is the core message that President Hichilema came with when he preached the restoration of law, the rule of law and order?
Okay, thank you. To start with, I need to put it on record that my arrest was a political witch hunt. It was a malicious attack on those people that are seemed to be close to ECL, the former president. And therefore, I was privy to the fact that the people that arrested me, even at the point of arrest, never got any statement from me because they knew that I had zero connection and zero knowledge about the case they charged me in. So I stayed in police cells for a month. There is no police officer who came to explain to me why I was arrested and why I was arrested.
Just hold on there. You were incarcerated for a month without charge?
Without charge. I could just hear and see media statements from the police spokespersons and other government officials talking about charges which myself I was never explained to.
You were never read your rights?
That was denied to me. It is something that I need to make clear so that as we go by, you need to understand that I came from that background. Even when I appeared before the court, there was no warn and caution statement for me, which I signed. Because, as I said, even the arresting officer never came to explain to me why I was arrested. I was just bundled in the police cells for a month. But also, before 1 month expired, you remember that there was an episode where after 2 weeks, when people said, take him to court, I was following those debates and advocacy. I was bundled in the night around 20 hours, taken to a prison, straight from the police cells, without going through a court process. As you may be aware, you cannot enter a prison in Zambia without a warrant from the judge, from the court. But I was among, if not the first Zambian, who was taken to a prison at Chimboka in the night when the prison was already closed, bundled there without any document from the court. After 3 days, the prison system said, look, we can't keep this gentleman here because there are no documents from the court. I was taken back, removed from the prison, taken back to another police station. So from Woodlands police station, where I stayed for a week, I was taken back after 3 days in prison to now Ibex police station, where I stayed for another 3 weeks. So from the word go, I want to put on record that what the president has been preaching and what is happening in the police service and what happened to me, there is a huge contradiction. To a great extent, it's a political mockery of what he says by those who enforce it, or it's deliberate for those who are in some offices to undermine him, or it's a political scheme targeted at specific individuals who seem to political critics of the government to punish them.
Based on your experience, where do you think the breakdown seems to happen? I've had the Minister of Justice sit right where you're sitting, preaching the same hymn sheet from the president, saying thorough investigations need or ought to be conducted by the police before arresting somebody. We need to be very clear. We've seen so many cases of compensation based on probably the incompetence or the professional misconduct of police. Where, according to your experience, is this breakdown? Do you really feel that the police are being politically sent or intimidated?
Yeah, no, it's both. They are in some cases, and in the case of my case, they are being politically sent as well as directed. These are police officers who would arrest you today without any zero evidence as to why they have arrested you. They sit down to cook up a charge against you. They have zero evidence. While you're inside, they begin to mobilize witnesses against you. They begin to investigate and cook up a case against you. So I stayed in prison, I think, for 3 months. And at some extent, I was following what was happening because, you see, in a normal society, not all people can hate you. Even in government, not all people will be against you. Number two, in any society, not all people will be politically biased. Some people are professional and credible. So it was filtering to us that there was zero evidence, but they were trying to cook it up. So the main delay as to why there is this contradiction is because there are cases, and in this case, where police officers are directed. And in fact, at some point, they don't even know what to do with you when they arrest you. I was arrested for more than a week. There was no charge. The people are simply saying, we are waiting for orders and directives.
From
the
who?
people that were keeping me at Woodlands Police had
From the police command?
That's a point. At the police at Woodlands Stadium, a station where I was kept, they had zero knowledge about my case. They said, no, we're just holding you, just keeping you. So we are going to wait for orders.
Let's get back, for the sake of, the audience and the viewers this evening, to follow, correctly. You were appointed by President Lungu, if I'm correct, on 20th of December
exactly.
2019.
Yes.
And the cases that you were charged with are believed to have been committed between February 1st and February 22nd of 2020. Are you telling me that in 2 months or 3 months, you were able to get into State House and mastermind, gassing? What did you know about this whole episode while you were in State House? These things happened on your watch. How does Chris Zumani Zimba get connected to gassing and terrorism charges? 3 months into office.
It's in fact 2 months or less. So to start with, you need to note that our lawyers demonstrated before the court that there was no terrorism which took place in Petauke, where my other 2 co-accused were accused to have been at the point when they were arrested. Police officers, citizens of Petauke, came before the courts as witnesses and gave evidence that there was no gassing or terrorism both in Sinda and in Petauke, where according to the charges, these instances would have taken place. And that's the reason why we were acquitted. So the charges that I was facing with my co-accused were charges which were fabricated, malicious, and indeed false and baseless. The police officers, including the arresting police officer, came to testify that indeed there was no terrorism and there was no gassing in Petauke, where my other 2 co-accused were found. Number 2, the arresting officer also testified before the court that indeed the 2 people, my co-accused, were not gassers and they were not terrorists.
But there were charges of terrorism before
terrorism. She was asked whether I sponsored terrorism, me as a person, to provide evidence. She could provide 0 evidence, and she ended up saying, in fact, he is not a sponsor of terrorism. And these were the questions which our lawyers battled with the state before the courts. Look, these are the charges I've given these people, but you, the people that have given the charges, are failing to advance the evidence.
Just for the sake of the viewers, I've had a chance to look at the court proceedings and some of the documents. Your connection is that you had sent some messages to Given Period Malon Banda. In the process, you had given them an assignment into the district and so on, and they were found with some chemicals or liquid. Let's run through that.
Okay, thank you. So there are 2 things. Number 1 is that there were 2 people that were arrested, Malon Banda and Given Period. Even up to the time I was arrested in 2023, I had no phone number for Malon Banda. I had never met Malon Banda. I had 0 knowledge of Malon Banda. There was a gentleman, Potiphar Gwai, the 3rd person. They thought I was also behind the procurement of the chemicals by Potiphar Gwai. I had never met Potiphar Gwai and I had no contact for Potiphar Gwai. The only person I could talk to who had the number in 2020 was Given Period. But you need to understand that I was a political advisor. So I had a lot of numbers for different political party members. So Given Period was just one of them. And Given Period,
are these PF members?
No, Given Period. Potiphar Gwai is a professional nurse. He's a civil servant. And I only knew him this year when we were arrested together. So Given Period, yes, was a PF member. He comes from Petauke. He's somebody who knows the village for the former president, and they have some relations. So that's a person I knew. And I used to contact and talk to different PF members across the country. So my phone, at some point, had a lot of numbers for PF members, both provincial members, district officials, constituency officials, ward officials, and at national level, even members of Central Committee. I used to talk to them. That was my job. So the fact that Given Period was found in Petauke and was purportedly found with some chemicals. They had to create a link when they charged him that I was involved this year. But you discover that, you see, when they were asked to provide actual evidence of how I sponsored, because sponsorship or aiding is maybe some form of resources.
What, again, just for the sake of clarity, what really happened in terms of chemicals that were found with Potiphar Gwai? How do we connect Marlon Banda, given period, and then trace this back to yourself? What chemicals were found?
So this is the way they had presented the charges. Marlon Banda and a given period, according to the facts they presented, were arrested in Sinda, not Petauke, in Sinda in 2020. And according to the police officers, these are the two who are found with the chemicals. And according to them, later on, they ended up starting to provide evidence that no, in fact, for them to be found with chemicals, Potiphar Gwai, who is a nurse by profession, procured and gave them. But they could not provide that evidence. And according to them, because when they went through the phone for given period, they found my number. And indeed, they said, no, then it means that that political advisor is also involved. That's how they linked me. Now, I want to put on record, given Piri made it very clear that he gave the police officers in Sinda my number to say I cannot be a gasser when he was arrested, because I have come from Petauke, I am related to the former president, and therefore you can contact his political advisor to confirm that I can't do this. So
before the arrest of 2023, given Piri was arrested in 2020.
Exactly.
For being found in possession of suspected, or for being in possession of chemicals suspected to be involved or connected to the gassing.
Exactly.
In 2020. Under the PF.
Under the PF. Mm-hmm. You see, because the PF was not a malicious government in the way people would want to present it today. So even under the PF, he was arrested and he was taken to the police, they investigated, and the case was thrown out. Because they discovered that, in fact, that arrest had some form of malice. Given Piri and Marlon Banda went to Petauke and spent the whole day at a police station in Sinda. They had a business with some police officers and some women to do the red mercury. When it failed, that's when the police sent a trap to say, no, this car, look for it, stop it, and detain them. So the whole day, these guys were at a police station trying to transact on red mercury. And the police officers were involved. In the evening when it failed, when they were coming back to Lusaka because they had money, a checkpoint ambush was laid against them and they were trapped and arrested. The money they had was taken away from them and charged with those chemicals. But when it came to the due process before the court, the police officers failed to show evidence that given Piri and Marlon Banda were found with chemicals because they refused.
Was that in 2020 or in 2023?
That's the reason why they were acquitted this month. Because there was no evidence of chemicals.
In 2021, did you, as political advisor in State House at that point, have anything to do with the release or talk to the police to release given Piri and Marlon Banda? No. Based on the phone call they made, did they make that phone call to you?
In fact, they didn't make the phone call. The phone call was not made to me, not to anybody. The phone call which was presented before the court this year as evidence that I was connected to given Piri was a phone call which shows that from Airtel printouts, we talked on 17th February.
Of 2021? Of
2020. And he was arrested on 24th. So they asked them that they talked on 17th February, and this guy was arrested on 24th. There was more than a week in between. How would you connect?
What was your conversation about on 17th February? Anything related to chemicals?
No, there was zero connection. Because he was a PF mobilizer. And I was not even aware that he was in Petauke anyway. I was not even aware that he was trading to do with the red mercury. Because you see, I used to talk to people every day. From Eastern Province, from Southern, from Wapula, from Copper Belt. It's normal for a political advisor, just like Levin Goma. He's talking to different political operatives on a daily basis. There are some people who want to talk to the president. Sometimes they will call a political advisor. There are some people, members of the party, they would want to update you on the political happenings in their areas. So you see, it's very clear from what even was given before the court that the arrest of this person, just like my co-accused, had zero evidence and no basis whatsoever to present or to warrant, in fact, the actual detention and the arrest. There was zero evidence the police officers presented for me for my charges. There was zero evidence they presented before against Potiphar Gwai. They charged him for procurement of the chemicals. They couldn't explain why procured.
Did the state present the chemicals before the court?
There were no chemicals before the court. Everything they presented was verbal and just malice and rumors. Zero chemicals. One of the charges my co-accused were charged of in terms of the possession of terrorist articles was Deep 600. Deep 600 is a chemical name for water. And that was presented before the court. There are some bottles of water which are branded Deep 600. But the police officers in 2020, including 2023, didn't know, the people arrested us, that Deep 600 was not a chemical, in fact, it is actually mineral water. And as you have asked, there was a zero chemical or evidence of that chemical presented before the court. So how can you be charged for murder as a serial killer, but you don't have a knife, you have never had a gun, no any weapon? But yet they said you murdered a lot of people, you killed a lot of people, you're a serial killer, you are found with a gun. There is no gun, there is no knife, and there is nobody you killed. That was the nature of our arrest and our case.
Talk us through your over 6 to 7 months incarceration. As we followed this before the court, obviously your legal team tried endlessly without, success to get you, bail before your court process could go on. What was your legal team telling you in terms of what they were facing and the hurdles before the court? What was the complication?
Yeah, in terms of the bail, lucky enough, Costa, I was privileged. I was attending those sessions when our lawyers were defending for the application of the bail. I heard their submissions, well-researched, thorough submissions, with a lot of citations and judicial precedents, backings. Generally, I believe you have some basic knowledge or more knowledge even in terms of legal issues. In criminal law, the law is not applied retrospectively. So if in 2020, public smoking was not prohibited, you cannot arrest somebody today in 2023 for public smoking because you have made the law today, who smoked in 2020. So in this case, in 2020, when there were my two co-accused were arrested, it was bailable because it was being governed by the 2018 Act of Terrorism. So it was bailable. Meaning that generally, the bail for us was supposed to be automatic and straightforward. And the legal team, our defense team, demonstrated before the court that we were entitled to bail because the case was bailable given the fact that it was committed allegedly in 2020 February. So the 2023 amendment to the Anti-Terrorism Act did not apply to a case or a charge which committed in February 2020. How and why that bail was denied, I can assure you today, only maybe the demons in here would answer that question. So I wouldn't be here to labor to say why I was denied bail and how. Because, as I said, our lawyers demonstrated, going by the basic principles of common criminal law in the Commonwealth countries, that I was entitled for a bail. But you see, whatever happened, we were not broken. We prayed to God. We looked forward for one day that we have justice, and justice came in December, and we were
after
acquitted.
7 months.
Yeah, exactly.
The due legal process obviously mandates that you are in remand, prison as you go to court. Only when you're convicted or sentenced is when you're taken to a prison, such as a maximum facility. You were taken to Mukobeko maximum, to Mwembeshi maximum facility before you even saw the inside of a court.
So you see, the way it works is this. As I indicated earlier, I was taken to prison even before going to court. It doesn't work like that. The reason why it's working like that now is a clear demonstration that the rule of law being preached by the president is a rhetoric. It's political empty statements. What is happening on the ground? The Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Justice are the right people to explain. To me, they are perpetually and consistently mocking the president. When he's giving some of these orders, you know, in September he came to Chimbokaira prison. I was there. President Ejech visited. He made a lot of these nice statements. Within 48 hours, when you arrest somebody, make sure they appear before the court, blah, blah. And the Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Justice, both were writing down their notes. It doesn't happen like that. They mock him. In fact, sometimes I tend to think they even laugh at him when he's speaking. The reason why there is a lot of mockery and impunity around what the president tells his ministers, only the ministers would explain. I can assure you what the president is preaching in terms of arresting somebody and ensuring that speedily the person appears before the court is not happening. The day I was released on 1st December 2023, I came from Chimbokaira prison, the gentleman who was appearing before the court, the High Court, for the first time, who was arrested in Chilundu and stayed in police cells for a year. And in December, that's the first time he was coming to appear before the court. The very first time. And this is the gentleman who was arrested in 2022.
So what does this...
February or January.
What does this say about our judicial system?
So you see, our judicial system must always start from the police. Much of the traffic we see in the police courts, in terms of inmates and people appearing, is because we have a failed system in the police. There is a lot of arbitrary arrests. There are a lot of detentions in police cells, people that are being taken to court. So a number of these police stations you see around have become hosts to our citizens who are supposed to be home, but they're being kept there uncaged. People are being denied police bonds. As I told you, I came with a gentleman who was kept in a police cell in Chilundu for a year. So the judiciary is being punished to offset the overload, which is a spew from the police cells. It's like there is some form of a broken system in the investigative system of Zambia, among and within the police ranks. A lot of people, from what I discovered, who are even in prison today, a lot of people in police cells today are not supposed to be there. I was kept in prison for 7 months with my co-accused, but the police officer had zero evidence against me. Now, if that can happen to a person who was a political advisor to a president at a particular time, how much is it happening to ordinary Zambians? And look, me, I was privileged by God's grace that I had legal representation, competent and very professional lawyers who defended us. What about those Zambians who do not have lawyers to represent them? These are the people who are rotting in police cells across the country. These are people who are being punished in different prisons across the country. So I would want to put it on record that what the president is preaching is instantly being mocked by his Minister of Justice and his Minister of Home Affairs.
What I failed to comprehend, Dr. Zimba, is the fact that you are saying that the police politically persecuted you on the fact that they had baseless allegations and they had zero evidence. Yeah. But I'm made to believe, obviously your files moved from investigative police officers right up to the DPP's chambers or the NPA. In many instances, if the DPP's office is not convinced, they'll either even just enter, a nolle prosequi. But for the DPP to proceed with coming to prosecute this matter, surely they should have had some shred of evidence. Can we just willy-nilly, abuse authority and waste taxpayers' resources when we have no case?
The reason why today people are being compensated is because of what I've just said. In some places, people are being compensated genuinely. In some cases, people are being just compensated for the sake of, a political payback by those who worked hard for the ruling party. Now that we're in power, will pay you back. And therefore, they have been given compensations. But as I said, you have seen many times and many other cases when the DPP and the police have lost cases. The state police have lost cases before the courts. These are many instances. We are not just an isolated case. That is clear evidence that sometimes there is lack of professionalism. At some point, there is lack of independence of that office to operate in the way it's supposed to operate. So I tend to think that the DPP's office is under political pressure. When I was in prison, I followed that there was some advocates that the DPP was too powerful or so they needed to put some board. And the proposals were made to review the office of the DPP, that he or she cannot be the person to decide what goes and what shouldn't go, but there should be a board around that office. I was following those debates. That demonstrates the fact that there is a lot of political interest in that office. And above all, there's a lot of political pressure on that office. So sometimes I believe that the DPP tend to push cases to linger before the courts, even when they know that those cases are not going nowhere, but because there is political pressure.
Not to sound that one is justifying a wrong, but how then do we fix this from one political regime to the next? And rightfully, like you say, there's a broken down investigative system. Isn't your case, again, this might not be an apple for apple example, similar to the HH treason case, because many would argue from a political lens that, again, that was just political persecution?
Look, there's a big difference. There is a video evidence that the man intruded into a presidential motorcade, from what I know. That was 2017. There is some video evidence. Whether the evidence is genuine, whether the evidence is convincing, whether the evidence is strong or weak, but there is a video evidence of the charge. So the case of the current presidency arrest in 2017, to me, has some element of evidence. My case has zero element of evidence. My detention in prison for 7 months was a political punishment and political malice. To President HH, I wouldn't think that was political punishment and malice, because you remember in 2018, he appeared before the BBC Hard Talk program, and Stephen Saka, I think that's a gentleman's name, told him that, look, in other countries they would have killed you. You cannot cross over a presidential motorcade or side by side, and in the same place you are the lead opposition leader. In other countries you could have been killed. I remember very well Stephen Saka in London told the current president, when he was trying to insinuate that was political persecution and malice, Stephen Saka on BBC had to refuse. He said, no, I've seen the video. In other countries, they would have killed you. Even here, we don't do that. So I wouldn't want to compare the two.
So in your case, you say it's political, witch hunt for those who are perceived to be closer to President Edgar Lungu. I mean, you served only from 2019, December 20 of 2019, and by August of 2021, you had lost an election and you were out. So why would they follow you of all people? There are probably others who spent more time, who are deeply, connected to President Lungu.
Yeah, but it's
what do you assume they were after in terms of coming after you?
It is not the time you spent or you'd have worked with the former president. I think it's the proximity.
Or it's your position.
And the position, exactly. As well as maybe the political crowd they believe you held and you hold. Look at the former president's family. Almost each and every child has been targeted. So it's about the proximity to the father. So for me, I was not even shocked, because it's something that I even hate months before I was arrested, that people are trying to find something because I was too close to Lungu, and that indeed they wanted to make my arrest a bridge to ECL. By the way, I wanted to put on record that arrest, I was not the primary target. The former president was the primary target. So the whole idea was to try...
Why do you allege so?
You see, we don't live in a vacuum. We live with people. People that are in government and people that are in society. So not everybody will hate you. People would come and whisper to you. I was informed weeks before I was arrested what was happening. There will always be good Samaritans in society. So even in this government, we have a lot of good Samaritans. And they'll always be there anyway. Sometimes good Samaritans could be among the team of the people that are cooking up and scheming. They'll come and inform you that, Mr. Mwansa, you're a good man, we know you, but this is what is happening. Please pray about it, or watch out. I knew weeks before that, months before that.
Government has week in, week out vehemently refused such claims that you're making, and not only you, even former President Lungu himself coming out into the public and saying he is aware of schemes to remove his immunity. But government has vehemently come out and said, we are not after President Lungu and his immunity. If we wanted, we would have done that way back. I mean, from 2021, this is 2023. Surely, if that was the UPND administration's agenda, why wait for so long? And what's the benefit of coming to people like yourself?
You see, the benefit of coming to people like myself, like Tasira Lungu, like Dariso Lungu, is that we are a bridge. We are connected to that man. For the children, it's direct. For people like me, it's in terms of political connections and work or associations. Number two is that, you see, you don't need to believe in what this government say many times. Anyway, you can choose to believe, but I don't. This is the government that promised Zambians many things. And this is the government that has not delivered on many fronts. So, to believe whatever they say is believing them at your own risk or peril. Politically, I don't think they can even sit down and accept that they are after Lungu. But, you see, it is not about words. It's about actions. It's about conduct. This is the government that has consistently demonstrated that they're after the former president. But they have consistently also verbally denied. So actions speaks louder than words. You can't say they are not after Lungu if they can go to Lungu's house and begin to break the gates. We cannot say they are not after Lungu if these are the people who can even stop President Lungu from merely jogging in the morning. They will issue statements to threaten him. We cannot say these people are not after ECL if these are the people who can even stop ECL from going to church to pray. Even one has been invited by just other Christians. They wouldn't want him to go and pray. So we cannot say these people are not after ECL if these are people who can even stop ECL from going to watch football as a citizen. We cannot agree with them when they say they're not after him. If these are the people who are even stopping him from even going to attend a memorial service for our brother, late Tutangluve in Kabwe. These are the people who sent an army of police officers yesterday in Kabwe just to block ECL from going to attend that memorial. And when you ask them, they vehemently refuse and say, he's a free man, we are not after him. We cannot say HH is not after ECL if HH, after more than 2 years, has never gone to visit physically the former president, to sit down with him and chat with him or even have a glass of water or cup of tea together.
Why is it always incumbent upon President Hichilema? Can't President Lungu equally, do that? We know that the relationship is strained, and on several times the former head of state has been invited for certain functions, but you will see that it is almost impossible, rarely, that the two would meet at a function. If the former president is attending, then the vice president will attend. But why do you feel it's incumbent upon, President Hichilema to be the one to reach out?
That is standard procedure and practice in government. It is the sitting president who is the host. Former presidents cannot host the sitting president. It doesn't happen like that anywhere in the world, especially in a functional democracy like ours. In Kenya, you have seen that it is President Ruto who has been spearheading courtesy as well as good gestures, political gestures towards President Uhuru Kenyatta. It's not the other way around. So the person with power, who yields power, that's a person who hosts the person who is weak. The former president is weak and he cannot invite
But in this particular case, what is the need for President HH to begin to reach out to former President Lungu, who has publicly come out that he's back in active politics? He's given up his benefits as per the law. So in this particular matter, he's being looked at as a political opponent. That's what he has chosen as his democratic right.
But you see,
so what's there to reach out to?
The comeback only is very recent. The former president has been in retirement for more than a year. There was no day President HH visited him. At some point, the former president was sick or ill. The sitting president never even bothered to go and see how he's doing. In fact, he was even stopped from traveling to South Africa for medical treatment. Look, the reason why I keep on repeating this issue is because I was there when President Lungu was handing over power to President HH. I was there during mediation. When we lost in 2021 in August, I was at the center of mediation by virtue of my political position at that particular time between President HH and President Lungu. The former president, late President Rupia Bwezani-Banda, was the main mediator. I was at the center of those mediations. I know exactly what was agreed upon. In fact, President HH, just go and watch his first address as president-elect to the Zambian people at Community House. What he said about President Lungu, before he even met President Rupia Banda and President Lungu, he made the commitments. We'll never touch you. You are going to be safe, Mr. President. We'll look after you. Just go and check that video. From that day to 3 months ago, 2 months ago, before President Lungu came back into active politics, there was no single day President HH acted toward to demonstrate what he said. What was agreed upon between himself, President Rupia Banda, and President Lungu, to date, he has not demonstrated it to act upon.
You say you were at the center of mediation with President Banda being the lead. Both President Hichilema and President Lungu claim there was no deal of some sorts. I've heard the president say that. So when you say there was mediation, are you trying to tell us this evening that there was an agreement or a commitment that at whatever cost, President Lungu should never be pursued?
There was no agreement as indicated, but there was a discussion.
Around what?
Around
handing over power.
Look, around brotherhood, around respect for the rule of law, around respect for the presidents, around respect for upholding values, Zambian values and cultures, around ensuring that there's political stability and order. Those were very important because you see, during transition, cadres can misbehave from either sides. The party that has lost or the party that is coming. There were a lot of discussions around ensuring that Zambia is held in its entirety in a peaceful and stable manner. There were guarantees that, look, we are brothers and we should put aside politics and move on in the spirit of one Zambia, one nation.
But that discussion did not guarantee that if there's reason to strip off the former president of his immunity or him being investigated, that should not happen based on that discussion. Never such a commitment was made.
And there's no need for such a commitment anyway. President Lungu...
So you agree there was no such commitment?
I want to put on record. President Lungu has repeatedly said he is free to be stripped off of that immunity and be presented before the court. He has been telling this government, if you want to remove my immunity, please go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. Moreover, the immunity of President Lungu is not something that he was born with. It is something that he inherited by virtue of him being a former president. This government is at liberty to remove it and investigate him and indeed present him in the way they want him to present before the court. And himself has been repeating, inviting them.
So
but you see the problem
when you say they've shifted, or President Hichilema has shifted from the breadth or the commitment or understanding of that discussion.
Brotherhood, it's about brotherhood. There was a commitment towards upholding brotherhood and respect for one another. That commitment has been broken. Do you think there is brotherhood today between President HH and President Ise? When the other one says, Zakugwira pamkosi, Mingarato, wati kutumpa uko, that is broken. So there is no brotherhood and there is no respect.
But based on that brotherhood commitment, should the independent and autonomous investigative wings who were not part of that mediation, because from where we sit, President Lungu has not been touched. But if there's a private citizen who reports, for example, the former First Lady over a $400,000 transaction, or the son to the president or the daughter is being investigated, that has nothing to do with that Brotherhood commitment. It has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, so you see, I don't know if your son bears the surname Mwanza. I presume they bear Mwanza. I'm Zimba because my father was Zimba, isn't it? So you can't separate me from my children. Neither can you separate me from my wife.
But if our children are adults, and they run into conflict with the law, there's nothing to do with who the father is.
You see, that's the reason why I think there is political hypocrisy here. The respect for Brotherhood has nothing from stopping them from investigating the former president or his family. But the respect for Brotherhood also has everything to look at ECL as ECL. ECL is a family man. So how would you believe that you are respecting ECL if you are insulting his wife or his children or persecuting them? So are we saying that those people never had anything, no resource to build even a house or to own a car?
Well, only the court will
So
prove.
these are the issues.
Only the court will prove. But if there's valid reason to investigate, surely the Brotherhood discussion will not stop. That's why I'm saying will not stop.
So you see, the Brotherhood is broken if you can't visit me. The Brotherhood is broken if you begin to speak ill about me. The Brotherhood conversation is violated if you begin to insult me. There's no Brotherhood. To me, that is what has been broken. The Brotherhood conversation is broken if you can stop me from being attended to by medical doctors abroad. Because if you're a brother, you should be able to care for me. The Brotherhood conversation is broken and violated if you can't even come to greet me or to check on how I'm staying. So this is the issue at hand. Forget about the issue of the immunity. Forget about the issue about the children. No, that's a different story. The issue is about respect for the former president on the principles of Brotherhood. President HH is going to be former president. Maybe in 2026, very soon, or in 2031. Would want him to be respected by whoever is going to take over and treat him as a former president. We should not have a legacy as a country of arresting, persecuting, demonizing, and indeed punishing each and every former president. That is a wrong legacy. So to me, that's where everything is wrong, because the principle of Brotherhood in the spirit of one Zambia, one nation demands that a former president, even when he erred, if you think he erred, should be treated with respect and should be treated with love as a citizen. Not where you stop him from doing anything and everything.
Monday, the 12th of December, will mark the International Human Rights Day. Zambia obviously will be commemorating, alongside, the globe. Bearing the experience you went through and other issues we've seen in form of the compensation cases, how would you describe how we are faring as a country in relation to the upholding of the Constitution and basically just preserve of human rights, upholding of human rights of our citizens?
I think the past few years, I think the record have been poor. It's on the decline. Even the Human Rights Commission, I think, has got evidence of those facts to date, as we speak. If you talk about I'll start with the people in prisons. And people have been detained without being taken to court. There are too many across the country. Both in Mwembeshi prison and in Chimbokaira, I met a lot of people who have stayed for months and years. I remember 3 gentlemen I met, they are still remandees, 13 years in prison. Their case is still on trial. I know of a gentleman who has 9 years. He has served 9 years in prison as a remandee. Up to date, doesn't even know when he's going to court the next day. But he's just a remandee. I know of some people who have been in prison for more than 7, 8 years, 5 years, and they're still appearing before the courts. So I don't understand to the extent which we respect human rights if we can hold people at ransom in that malicious manner. People being kept in prison for many years, and later on at some point maybe they'll be acquitted. That is too much punishment. That is too much torture, and that is too much inhuman. It's against the values of human rights. The people in prison, they eat what is called dagaa. Dagaa is some form of carpenter from Tanzania, which is not even carpenter, but it's something that is meant, I'm told, for fertilizer or manure. That's what they eat there. You can't eat it. Many Zambians, they can't eat it. But they eat it in prison because they don't have an option. That's a food which is presented to them on a daily basis, weekly basis. You need to wash it more than 7 times. It has stones. It will be, when you wash it, the water will turn as if there is surf, powder stuff there. But that's what they eat every day, every week. So the food arrangement, the diet arrangement in prisons is pathetic. Those people only eat twice. They don't eat, and in some cases maybe they even eat once. But many times I've seen they eat twice. But what they eat is a big issue in terms of their health.
Following your acquittal, obviously maybe pending appeal, if the state wants to appeal, I saw some headlines last week in the tabloids. Are you considering with your legal team to go the route of compensation? Do you feel that government needs to compensate you? Have you been unfairly and illegally treated?
Yeah, it's not about the feeling, it's about what the law says. So, look, I don't need to feel about compensation. I just need to be interested in what the law says. So, the law says so. If you are maliciously prosecuted, upon acquittal, the court will order the state to compensate. So it is not about what I want, it's not about what I feel, it's about what the law says. And I believe that our lawyers will just act based on what the law says, not what I tell them, or not what I want, or not what I wish. Look, my greatest prayer and wish was freedom and acquittal, because even when I was in prison, I was a free man. I was innocent, and I knew that I don't belong here, I belong to the world of the free. To me, that was my greatest prayer, desire, and my prayer was answered. I want to make it very clear that compensation should not have a political party face. Compensation should not have a regional and ethnic face. So if we know that a PF member was murdered, and people, his family lost him or her, if there's compensation for UPND member whose life was lost and the family lost that person, the compensation must go to both. The case in mind is the late brother, is it Gaddafi Banda's family. They have been demanding for compensation, a UPND member. I don't know whether the family has been compensated or not. My prayer is that they need to be compensated. It is not an issue of Gaddafi Banda being UPND that the family must be compensated. It's an issue of the state owning up.
There's already a reaction from the chief government spokesperson over your issue. You've been told government is not Father Christmas, so don't be too quick.
Look, the problem we are making is that we want to present that gentleman as if he is the Alpha and the Omega. Government is not about the person speaking. Government is an institution which operates based on the laws. The gentleman in mind they're talking about is a citizen just like you and me, number one. Number two, the gentleman in mind they're talking about is a member of parliament for, is it Choma Central? That person is, number three, is a member of Central Committee for UPND. That person is a spokesperson for UPND, number 4. Number 5, that person is a minister for media and information. Number 5 or 6, that person is the chief government spokesperson. So when he speaks, we need to isolate in which capacity he is speaking. Now, I want to put it on record here that, look, a chief government spokesperson in any functional and decent democracy doesn't speak every week, doesn't speak every day. Because the chief government spokesperson only speaks when there's a cabinet meeting and deliberations and positions have been made clear on specific policy issues. He or she goes to represent, to tell the nation. That's a chief government spokesperson. A chief government spokesperson speaks when he or she has been given orders by the president.
Well, probably they've got a different operational style.
No, I want just to tell you,
under the Patriotic Front, probably they've got a different way of communicating as a new administration.
Comrade Mwansa, Zambia didn't live in isolation. We have neighboring countries. Have you ever seen a chief government spokesperson of South Africa, Malawi, Congo, Ghana, America, or China speaking every week? No. Unless there is a crisis. When we had COVID, our chief government spokesperson was speaking weekly. But above all, there was a sector minister of health, was speaking on a daily or regular basis. So governments operate in similar pattern.
I think for enhanced communication, a weekly briefing is what has been the practice, as far as I know, even in White House. Even under the PF, we had weekly briefings.
Now you are talking about White House.
Even under the PF, we had weekly briefings.
So there are two things here. There's a chief government spokesperson, then there's a state house presidential spokesperson. You can't have one person consistently speaking weekly and every day.
Well, State House,
so what is
State House in Zambia right now has no spokesperson. So probably that's why the chief government spokesperson speaks that much.
No, they have got a chief communications person there. That's a spokesperson for State House. That's the reason why certain statements are issued in his name. But I want to put something on clear here. When you have a chief government spokesperson, it means you've got other spokespersons for government in other sector ministries. So you can't have one person speaking on everything. But above all, when a person speaks as a chief government spokesperson, it must have come from the president or from cabinet.
Finally, as a political scholar yourself, a political author and consultant, I want you to quickly weigh in on what is happening in the former ruling party, the PF. So much has happened, cross-expulsions, conventions, whether legal or illegal, the comeback of former President Lungu. What is your independent and honest political lens viewing?
What is happening in PF is political machination of the ruling party. It is something that it happens in many countries. When a former ruling party is still active and vibrant, the ruling party becomes uncomfortable. So they will try to sponsor different schemes and projects to destabilize them, divide them, and weaken them. So what we are seeing in the PF is not the happenings that are organic within PF. These are happenings that are sponsored. The ruling party will not accept it, because no ruling party would accept such anyway. But the ruling party, I can assure you, they have a bigger hand. And there is evidence to that fact. The fact that these conventions of the Mao Sampas and the likes are even protected by the police, state police, is evidence enough that the state is seriously behind them and involved. The state would not provide such security, police security, to any political party convention. It is historical. It's happening for the very first time that a convention of a ruling party is heavily protected by the state police. So I can assure you that PF, from the way I see things, is not divided.
Again,
but there are a lot of these political schemes and sponsorships, but the ruling party against PF.
As a former advisor to President Lungu, politically, I know that you're not officially a political advisor anymore in the office of, the sixth head of state. His political comeback, after being heavily rejected by over 1 million votes in 2021, again, from a political scientist point of view, do you support President Lungu's comeback? Is that what Zambia needs?
No, I see. There's something I've said after his political defeat, heavy political defeat. The current president of Brazil is President Lula da Silva. That is coming back to power for the second time. After he lost power, in fact, he was even imprisoned, President Lula. But last year, early this year last year, the people of Brazil said, no, we want back the same former president. Today, the president of Brazil is somebody who was rejected some 5 years ago, lost power. The president then, Bolsonaro, even arrested him, took him to prison. But the people of Brazil said, no, between you, our current president was saved for a term, and that one who we rejected 4 years ago, we want that one.
The scenarios differ.
Political dynamics.
It's an example, but the scenarios differ.
Yeah, political dynamics have a tendency to repeat. So let me come back home. The comeback of President Lungu is not a making of his own. It's a making of the ruling party, and it's a making of President HH. He's a man who has been politically squeezed. He's a man who has been politically persecuted heavily. So what was the meaning of his political retirement if he was living in political anguish and oppression?
But don't you think it should be about the people wanting him back, like you're saying? The people of Brazil wanted Lula back?
Yeah, let me finish. So in his political oppression and anguish, he still persevered to remain in retirement. But you see, this president in office promised Zambians the honeymoon, the paradise. First year, they endured the pain. Maybe vizachitika, maybe vizachinji. It never happened. Second year, it is becoming worse, including this third year. They started trooping to the former president in numbers, calling in numbers, come back. Even when he just goes to jogging in the morning, they will ambush him and demand, come back please and save us. Even when he goes just to buy bread at a shopping mall, people come in numbers to demand, no, want you back. So the failure by President HH to deliver on his campaign promises of 2021 is one of the main reasons that's why many Zambians believe that President Lungu was better
in short,
and is a better
from
person.
a political scientist perspective, President Lungu's comeback is justifiable?
Look, we don't need to justify it today in this studio. It can only be justified in 2026 by the Zambian people. Look, there are a lot of subjective views people hold, whether somebody is popular or not popular. But the right judges, political judges, to determine that, whether that is justifiable, whether that is progressive or not, is the Zambian voters. So in 2026, if he is allowed to be on the ballot against a sitting president, the Zambian people now would decide who is a better leader between President HH and President Lungu. So for me, I wouldn't even want to speculate whether it's justifiable or not. But I want to indicate that, look, the failure by the current president on the economic front, on the political front, has necessitated the Zambians to put pressure on President Lungu to come back. That's number one. Number two is that the current president and his administration have never given President Lungu any space or rest. So his political retirement was futile and in vain. He has just come back to fight for his survival because he's being fought left, right, and center by this current government.
Dr. Chris Zumani Zimba, thank you so much for talking to us following your acquittal by the court on terrorism charges on December 1st of 2023. Thank you for talking to us on Costa.
Thank you so much. I'm thankful and I really appreciate it.
That wraps up tonight's edition of Costa. My guest, former President Edgar Lungu's political advisor, Dr. Chris Zumani Zimba, a political scientist and scholar, as well as author. He was, along two other accused, acquitted by the Lusaka High Court on terrorism charges according to the Anti-Terrorism and Non-Proliferation Act number 6 of 2023. Remember to catch us again next week on the live stream Midstime on TV Zambia on Facebook as well as on YouTube.